right? He's like, this is the most important. He said, my expectation is not that you learn anything in these 4 years in a classroom. And that's where I'm like, kind of like, what? Especially like, Korean, I had 2 tiger parents that were always about school, grades, academics. He's like, I don't care about that. I just need you to graduate in 4 years, right? And he said, if I wanted you to learn something in life, I would have saved myself 6 figures and say, just go to work for yourself, right? But what I want you to figure out in your 4 years at Bradley is how to build relationships with people. And I'm like, what? And he's like, listen, you're going to meet kids who grew up on farms, right? That they don't even have a McDonald's in their town, let alone a stoplight. And you're going to meet international students that left their country, their home, their comfort zone, jump through all these hoops to get the best education, best opportunities that they could seek out to better themselves and their family. And in these conversations, when you meet these people, half these people are going to really embrace your differences, right? Being Korean American, where you're from, and really want to come from a place of curiosity, ask all these questions about you. And you're going to meet another half of people that want nothing to do with you, that don't want to celebrate your differences, and actually kind of pisses them off, right? That you're different from them. And he's like, what I need you to figure out in 4 years is no matter what side of the fence these people sit on, you got to figure out how to build a relationship with both. And you got to understand, right? I'm like 17, 18 years old. I'm like, okay, weirdo. Like, like sure. Like, I'm going to do well in school. I'm going to learn something. I'm going to get a degree, whatever. Fast forward 4 years. It's like 2-3 weeks before I'm about to graduate from Bradley, and did it in 4 years. And I'm living in this house off campus with 8 of my best friends, okay? I think we only have 5 bedrooms too, by the way. We just crammed each other in to bring our rent down. And I remember leading up to graduation, every day, like, right, I get that knock on the door, open, and there'd be someone delivering flowers. There'd be someone delivering like fruit baskets, cookie bouquets. All of my roommates were getting showered with gifts by their parents, right? Because they're about to graduate. And I'm like looking at all this stuff, right? The flowers, the balloons, fruit, cookies, right? I'm just kind of like pissed, right? Where's my appreciation? Although I'm like the fruit basket thing was kind of weird. I'm like, that's definitely a white people thing, because like Asians, we don't send each other fruit, but
especially cut up fruit
in like stars, and yeah, right. And I was just I was wanting that gratitude, right, from my parents. I wanted that approval. So I picked up, right, the old landline, called my dad, because at that time I had gotten a job letter. Right, acceptance letter. I called my dad. I'm like, hey, Dad, guess what? He's like, what? I got a job today. It's this company called CDW. Right? It's this Fortune 100 company, and it's this IT tech sales job, and I'm in this state and local government health division, and they said that, if I make, 100 plus cold calls a day for 3 years straight, I'm on track to make a 6-figure income. And I remember my dad being like, I'm proud of you, right? And I'm thinking like, holy crap, this is what I waited for my entire life. And then the silence ended. It's like, I'm proud of you because now you're going to know what it's like to work hard for someone else. And I just saw red, right? And I was like, Dad, I don't think you get this. Like, all my roommates, all my friends, they're going to law school. They're going to get their MBA. Not because they want to further their education, because they have no jobs and they're buying time and putting themselves into debt. I'm like going to be a tax-paying worker entering the workforce. And he's like, yeah, I'm proud of you. You're going to learn what it's like to work hard for someone else. Hang up the phone, literally hung up on him. Fast forward, 4 years later, I'm working downtown, CDW, 10 South Riverside. My training class was the old Woodland Falls office off Town Line Road, just more north of here. Made it to the city, across from Lyric Opera House, 110 South Riverside. I made 130 cold calls a day for 3 years straight. State and local government IT directors, right? I don't know if anyone has an IT pass, but that was like going to the DMV 130 times a day. It was the worst thing in the world, talking to an IT person. It was like extracting information. No one would ask. I'm like, how are you? They're good. Like, do you want to know how I am? I'm like, no, you know. But I did it, and I was 24 years old, and I was making $115,000, which was like, holy crap, I made it, right? I bought a condo in the city, but specifically, I remember this day. It was the last day of the month in February of 2006, and I was the last person in the office in my cubicle, and reason being was that was like the best sales month of my life, and I wanted to see my commission check. And so I'm there, and this was the old school CRT monitors, right? The big ones, those green screen. I'm hitting Shift F5, refreshing the company's intranet, trying to see my commissions, roll. 7 o'clock p.m. hits, like literally the lights turn off. I'm like in the office, just like waiting, and finally I see it, and it was a $30,000 commission check, right? Still a lot of money today, a lot of money back then. I remember staring at it blankly, right? Thinking like, wow, I thought this was going to be a lot cooler, right, than it really is. And in that moment, this little piece of paper caught my eye in my cubicle. It had this big white piece of paper. I wrote $300,000 on it, and that was my goal, right? So I had to, if I sold enough revenue to generate $300,000 a GP, as they call it, gross profit for the company, I got 10% of that, right? And I remember doing the math, and like, okay, like CDW makes a lot of money off me, but I didn't care. They gave me a nice office. They gave me all the technology I needed to call. They gave me a database to call. That didn't bother me. But what bothered me, the next sheet of paper next to that was a calendar. And I still do this to this day. I chunk down my goals. How much do I need to sell each day to get to that GP goal? And every day I would put an X through these days when I hit them. And I remember staring at that and going through it, and around halfway through February, I started to notice these things behind the X's. The one that stood out the most to me was Jimmy's birthday, okay? Jimmy is my best friend, right? If you fast forward to today, he was my best man in my wedding. He's the godparent to one of my middle daughter. I've known him since 3rd grade. I couldn't believe that I forgot his birthday. I didn't celebrate it. We didn't go out to dinner. Back then when I was 20, right, you set up these like wristband package deals at bars. You pay $20, all you can drink for 2 hours. I don't remember even doing any of that. And it really hit me. And I started to go through, and then I started seeing other events, family events, friends events. At that time in my life, and I think this is true to many people, especially when they're new to our industry, we think this definition, we define success in a monolithic way. And a lot of the times it's what does a W-2 and 1099 say December 31st of the year. And that was me in my 20s. And I thought a 6-figure income was like, I made it. I had realized I was so focused on making money, right? Because I thought that would bring me happiness, that all these relationships I made throughout the years, what my dad had empowered me the night before college to focus on, and I did, right? He planted that seed in me, and I did it not knowing. I had ruined all these relationships. And instead of being the happiest in my life, I was miserable. I would wake up every day to first figure out what day of the week it is so I could see how many days away from the weekend it was. And so I had this, I think what alcoholics call this a moment of clarity, and I had this flashback montage of all these weird conversations with my dad throughout the years that I had so much, like, this guy doesn't get it, and it all made sense. I remember picking up the phone and called my dad. I was like crying. He thought I was in a car accident. I'm like, no, I'm okay. I just realized how bad of a son I was, and we had this beautiful moment. But I remember before I hung up the phone, he asked me, what are you going to do about your situation? And I was so scared to hang that phone up because I knew the moment I did, I had to do something. And that moment I did, I went back and I thought about what makes me happy, right? That's what I need to do. That's how I ended up in real estate. Some people will always ask me, like, so real estate makes you happy? No, it doesn't. Meaning, the day-to-day transactional piece of what we do is not what makes me happy. What we do as an industry, being realtors, that's a platform, right? It's a stage that we get to stand on. And the beautiful thing about our industry, why I have so much gratitude for it, is that when we stand on this stage, we all get to do something different, something that makes us happy. For me, it is going back to what my dad empowered me with. I cultivate and curate relationships. That's why I wake up smiling. That's why I'm so excited, why I love this industry. That's the happiness and joy. The beauty in this is the success follows, whatever that is that you're seeking out. So, long answer to your short question is, you know, I was doing that, and through that exercise, you know, as a young 25-year-old, I came to this conclusion and came into this industry. I got licensed, bless you, in 2006, and I got lucky. Josh and I got lucky because we both got licensed, and some of you may remember back in the day when you could just take, you know, an extra 15 hours of class work and 50 questions. You could just go for your, back then what's called your broker's license, now managing broker. I did that, and then 3 months later, the state of Illinois was like, this is probably a bad idea. And the NSBAR changed it. But Josh and I, we started our own brokerage to sell together as a team from that day one. You know, so that's how we're here.
Well, I know you experienced a ton of success in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
I want to kind of tie that into your participation, obviously. So you kind of just threw out there that you did the NARBP thing.
Yeah.
That's not a hired, I don't want to say that's not a staff position.
No.
That's a volunteer realtor position that you took on for a year. So
yeah,
maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
You know what? So that, yeah, I was very surprised because a lot of people. That's, you know, there's two VPs on the national level: the Vice President of Association Affairs, which they oversee all the committees, and then the Vice President of Advocacy, who oversees all the realtor party side of things. So those are the two highest appointed positions in NAR. And it's one that a lot of people, and you all know that are involved, right? People chase titles. It's one that people very much so lobby for and try and get and want. I had zero, it's not even on my radar, right? I just did the work because I cared about our industry. I wanted to protect, you know, I have so much gratitude for all the opportunities this industry has provided for my family, myself, my team. I want to protect that, right? I wanted to make sure that my foot's always wedged in that door I just walked through 16 years ago, so that 25-year-old today or the 70-year-old who wants to reinvent themselves, they have the opportunity to walk through the same threshold and seek the same opportunities we all have gotten and received. So I got a phone call from the president, Charlie Alper, this is 2019. He's saying, hey, I want you to be my VP of Association Affairs in 2021. The cool thing about this was there's basically 7 people that make up the leadership team of NAR that really help drive the decisions. Now, of course, it's checks and balances. The board of directors is who really runs our association. However, what was cool about that was, you know, coming into it, I thought it was just going to be like a rubber stamp thing, right? I'm just a mouthpiece, you know, like, you know, there. But we shaped a lot of change. It also helps who the president is. And Charlie Alper, he wanted to make change. So one thing that was very important to me, because I am a big believer in RPAC, I wanted to bring more accountability to that. I want to bring more transparency to that, right? Because sometimes it's like behind this curtain, people don't know what's going on and they think there's agendas being done. So that was a big thing for that. And part of that accountability was bringing more underserved and communities and groups there, right, for representation, right? Like people like myself who aren't at that table. And through that, we got to do a lot of the diversity work that you see today was all these things that we pushed and put forth that year that continued to come through. So, you know, the idea is not so much like, hey, let's make more room at our table for everyone. Our vision and idea that year was like, screw this table, let's build a new one together for everybody, right? So that it's not people coming in where everyone has an idea to build. And so we're continuing to build that. We have the right leadership moving forward now that continues to do that on all aspects. So that was a very cool experience. The one that the same reason why I commend all of you and your involvement. I go down these at night. My way of decompressing is YouTube and TikTok, and probably the worst things to do. But I go down these spirals of YouTube rabbit holes, and I remember one night, a while back, I came across videos of dendrochronologists. Do you know what dendrochronologists are? Yeah, me neither. They're the people who study trees, the scientists that study trees. And what was interesting while I was on like 2 in the morning, my 5th hour of dendrochronology videos, was we all know when you cut open a tree, you see the tree rings, right? You count them, you can see how many years the tree's been alive. But what I didn't realize, and what these dendrochronologists study, is in these rings of trees, it tells a story of how that tree lived that year. When there's a drought, the rings are super thin, right? When there's a lot of rainfall, the rings are really wide. In California or the West Coast, when there's fires, smoke damage, you see those in the rings, right? The rings tell us history of the life and the environment that tree lived in, right? And I think about that, I think how powerful that is, because what you all are doing today, not just for NSBAR, but for our industry and our state, 10, 15, 20 years from now, hundreds of years from now, when people cut open our tree to look at the rings, your DNA, your effort, the work you've done is going to be told in those rings, right? I think the important thing, and this is what we're focused on in the state, and nationally as my year as VP, was, are we going to be proud of what story the rings tell of the years that we were involved, or are we going to look back and how we should have done this differently? And so that's why I really want to empower all of you to continue to do, is continue to do the work that you'll be proud of, and the work that we do today, we're not going to benefit from, and that's okay. But the realtors that come up 10, 15, 20 years from now, they should be the ones benefiting, right? So that then they can also imprint their DNA on the rings for the future, right? And we continue to tell a story that we're super proud about, right? That we positively impacted the industry.
I have one more, but
Go ahead.
well, I want to, is there anybody else that has a question they want to
Oh, I
ask?
didn't realize people weren't here. Oh, Luigi,
Yeah.
my guy Ethan, all right, Steve Hudson, Legends, wow, okay. I didn't know Bruce. Why doesn't Bruce have his camera on?
He's shy.
He's
not paying attention.
All those commercial deals,
I did want to ask.
Taking coffee, but he's listening very intently to Tommy's story.
All right, so Charlie Opler called you up to do the NAR thing, but I just want to ask about, you decided to go and up the chairs and stay.
Yeah.
So what is it that you're looking to do as you go up the chairs?
For me, and here's the cool thing, we have a great lineup of leadership that I think are in the trenches, right? For me, what I want to make sure I'm representing the communities and people that I'm a part of, meaning, I still go on 100, 120 listing appointments a year, right? My team sells 100, 150 million dollars in real estate a year. I'm still actively involved because ultimately that's my ultimate high. I love sitting with a seller at their dining room table, just completely dominating them. Them eating out of my hand because they trust me. They're like, gosh, this guy is an expert. I will do whatever you say, Tommy. That's the ultimate high, right? And that's what I always still love and enjoy. And I think that in our industry, sometimes that voice isn't actively at the table, right? We see a lot of the times, maybe it's, broker, owner, manager, whatever, and that's okay, right? Commercial, we need those voices, but for me, that's something that's very important. I want to make sure that our active realtor members, that are still selling, actively are represented, and also, listen, politically, there's just a lot of stuff, there's always a lot of stuff against our industry, not just nationally with all these lawsuits, locally as well. So I think it's important to have the practitioner's voice there. So that's something that's very important. And also, you know, when it comes to diversity, I really want, you know, you can't be what you can't see, right? And so, you know, as a kid, for me, when people ask me, like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? All my friends and classmates, they were so easy, like, I want to be a baseball player, football. I couldn't answer that question because I didn't have examples out there for me, right? I could, you know, the two examples I said, what I could see is like dry cleaner owner, my mom, right, successful, or my dad was a welder, right? So those are the two things, and not that I wasn't proud of it, but that's not what I wanted to be. So I think that's also a very important piece that, especially with how diverse our state is, especially where we all transact and whatnot, to make sure that our leadership and the people involved look like the communities that we serve as well. So those are the two really important things that we're all aligned with as a leadership team working moving forward.
I've offered up to Tommy, I've said, hey, NSBAR's behind Tommy 150, he's got carte blanche with us. But I did get in exchange for that, Tommy said he's 150% there for us. So if we ever need anything, we can go to Tommy and run with it.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if there's...
Does anybody have any questions?
Very quick question.
Yes, Steve.
I mean, I was on the bus on the way back from Springfield, and one of our members said, is it just me, or does no one ever want to talk about taxes in the state of Illinois, pensions in the state of Illinois, when our real estate values are probably half of what they should be, according to Kay Schiller? And when is IR going to ever address that?
I love that. I love that you asked that, because the funny thing about that is the coincidence. I always host a luncheon with one of my mentors. Her name is Millie Rosenblum. And we invite the top producing agents in Chicago. It was actually yesterday, right? And we pay out of pocket. We've done this for, I don't know, 7-8 years now. And where I'm going with this, Steve, is that I invited Tom Benedetto. He's the new chief GAD, right, in charge of all the GADs. And he comes from the apartment world too. And you know, I feel like I got to send him flowers because, you know, he entered the firing squad. And Steve, that question was not only brought up by myself, but by many people, right? Because the pensions are a big, you know, ultimately that's where we have a big issue with, you know, kind of property tax, all that's going on. So he didn't have, you know, the answer or whatnot, but it's something that he did say that we are going to continue. We're going to make a forth an effort to make sure that those conversations are dovetailed along with all the other conversations we're having when it comes to private property rights, because it does affect that. You know, I'll give you another example too that we discuss is, you know, and you know, for I don't know how many do deals in Cook County, but this whole mansion tax, transfer tax thing that's come back up again. You know, a lot of people, you know, don't realize the bigger piece of this is that, you know, I want to say the transfer taxes, the majority, and don't quote me on this, 75 to 80% of it goes to the CTA, right? So it's like, what?
In Cook County or in the city of Chicago?
City of Chicago, sorry,
Oh,
City of Chicago,
okay.
City of Chicago. Yeah, not the county taxes, city taxes. Those are the things, to Steve, like we're making sure that that's not just being uncovered. We know that it's public information, but bringing that to light, not just to our members, but to our representatives, you know, within the state, in the city councils, things like that, so that, you know, hey, it's not just like, why is money from that going to that? Yeah, if you're going to make the argument of, you know, especially downstate, certain things helping other people, whatnot, let's make sure the allocated resources are going to somewhere, right? We're on board for that, but we need to make sure it's going somewhere that it really belongs and the work can be done. So I will continue to voice that, Steve, and make sure that, you know, Greg, Betsy, you know, our government affairs department is aware of that, and we can start to voice that. And I mean, that's a, you know, Pandora's box to try and like figure out, but it's got, we have, and any of you that were in Springfield last 2 days know how well respected we are as an organization, how loud our voices are, and we have that influence, and it's time that we need to push that weight around a little bit more.
And if I could be a little bit more blunt
Please.
and direct, just only because Steve and Katie and I have had the opportunity to talk to Jeff and Kristen and others down there. The biggest concern I think that, well, I won't say the biggest concern I have, and I think that it's shared, is that issues come up and are often not given a lot of weight by the Illinois realtors, or they're deflected away because they're not real estate related.
Right.
Even though we know they really are. And so I think that's a big issue for us, and it's great to hear that you're, you know, thinking about this, and that you're gonna make sure that these things stay in front of them.
You know, and I'll give you another example, and this is on the national level. You know, at the end of the day, right, when we look at how our PAC works, you know, gosh, and now that I'm on the spot, I'm gonna botch the numbers, but I'm gonna say about 2/3 of our contributions stay within the state. Right? 1/3 goes to national stuff. And then the transparency, the way it works with trustees, just like it does in Illinois, right? When NSBAR has your state representatives, county elections, you know, mayoral elections, you're bringing it to the Illinois trustees to say, hey, we want to back this candidate, we would like some money, right? And the trustees are doing their due diligence, and majority of the times it's absolutely, let's get it to them ASAP. So it's not, you know, someone in this ivory tower that's making these decisions. Same thing nationally. When a, you know, state goes to the national trustee, says, hey, we want to, you know, support these state representatives in Congress or senators, we would like our, you know, money to get towards that, or an independent expenditure and whatnot. Now, with that being said, you know, for me, where the accountability comes in is when there's special situations where maybe some states might have a runoff, and now all of a sudden that's a new, you know, opportunity to invest and whatnot, and where they are, you know, stand something socially, they're not real estate stuff, right? That's where there needs to be some more accountability. And, you know, we saw a little bit of it nationally when after that, you know, the insurgents, we said we're not going to do anything, right? And members of Congress started to get a little nervous, like, hey, we pissed off the realtors. So anyhow, you know, that's obviously national stuff, but that's the mindset I'm bringing into the state as well, to make sure that, to your point, right, we are focused on everything. Because at the end of the day, we're the center. I think our industry is at the center of the economy. Right? People don't have a place to live, a safe place to live. Everything else, businesses don't have customers, right? Service providers don't have anyone to service, so it's important that we can use that leverage into other things that affect all that ecosystem of where we are.
Awesome. That's great. Steve's always leading the charge on this, which I will always love, so thanks for the question, Steve. And Tommy, you know, just a little aside story, so we've known each other like maybe 8 years or so. And when I was going to run for the board, I reached out to Tommy and I said, will you give me a recommendation? When I think you were president of CAR then. So you're why I'm here, because obviously I got your recommendation.
Well, I'm glad you're there.
So thank you very much, really appreciate it. Anybody have any questions? I'm assuming, Tommy, you are always open if somebody's going to reach out to you with questions or conversations, and you have our support here at NSBAR for sure.
Yeah, I'm always available, especially for you all. You all are like family to me because of, like, you know, my time at the Gap. No, I'm just joking. No, because our markets do dovetail. Right?
Half my outfit is Old Navy, so.
There you go, it's in the family, right? So anyhow, I want to make sure, you know, you all know that, you know, you get the extra white gloves and extra red carpet with me, so.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Maybe cut that out of the recording.
Best piece of life advice.
Oh, wow. Well, here's how I'll answer that. If I could go back 2006 and my 25-year-old self about to get into real estate, you know, and tell Shake, like, hey, just listen to this one thing. I think the one thing that I've learned and I've come to appreciate is that the direction you travel in is much more important than the speed, right? It doesn't matter how long or how quickly it takes for you to get to where you're going, because when you're there, all that matters is you're there, you made it, you gotta celebrate that. But what's harder, especially in this social media world where it's this whole like don't sleep, hustle, grind mentality for all these young, realtors coming up, I think a lot of people are focused more on their speedometer and how fast they can get to where they're going, but a lot of the times they might not be going in the right way, right? And so for me, the harder and more challenging thing is to figure out where your North Star is, right? What is that GPS point for you? Just constantly following that. And so the direction you travel in, I think, is always much more important than the speed, and that's how I kind of live my life, and I wish I did that day one. However, had I not focused on the speed early on, I would never come to this realization, right? And that's the challenging part in all of our journeys, is that, like I said earlier, success is not defined in one way. It means many different things for us, and there's not one route and path to where we're all going. However, in this social media dominated world where everyone's posting just their highlight reels online, it's easy for us to see those things and use those as mile markers on our journey. But that's not right nor fair, right? Because you don't know what's going on behind the scenes there, nor what if that's the direction you want to be. And a lot of the times, those are the people I think that just don't know what their North Star is, and they haven't figured out where they want to be at. It takes time, but I think that the more that people focus on that, the more I think everyone will be in a better place.
Great question.
Hey Jeff, could you hit the chat button? Because it was a really good quote that Steve just put up there. So Tommy can see too. I love it.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you so much, Tommy.
Thank you all for having me. Thank you everyone online. Hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Tommy.
Yeah, Luigi, I'll see you soon on the MREC board. You get stuff together.